Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Woodrow, and yes, it is in fact the Image Comics catalog for January 2024. It's been 2 months since I did a previews video, and it was just I needed a break, honestly. As those of you who are active on the Slack or are up to date on the podcast, you know that there was just a period of time earlier this year where I was pretty disenfranchised with um, some things going on. Not comics in general. There's a million great comics, but mainly like the big two, and just it just felt like I don't know. For me, it was they're the least interesting they've ever been, and that's not to throw shade on anybody who's still loving them. That's great, but again, just for me, it was really not vibing on much of anything that they're doing right now, and so I needed to sort of have a time away from the previews because it was getting kind of hard to make uh, videos where 2/3 of the output that's coming out, and probably the stuff people care about the most, at least our opinions, is stuff I really don't have much to say about. So, but nevertheless, feeling refreshed, and uh, spoiler alert, my excitement for Marvel and DC hasn't really changed all that much. But we will touch on their respective catalogs too this month. But I wanted to start with the what I consider the main catalog these days. Image has its own catalog now that they have left Diamond. Excuse me. And so we're going to go through it because if I were to check off the things that I'm buying and enjoying from Image, it pretty much far exceeds the sum total of everything else that I buy in comics right now. So let's go through it. We're just going to scroll on. I'm looking at my laptop because it's digital only these days. But nevertheless, the launch of the month, and I can certainly concur. You know that we've been very impressed with the Kirkman Skybound acquisition of the Transformers world, the Energon universe. Excuse me. And of course, I love the Transformers, but my first love is certainly GI Joe. There have been long periods of time where the GI Joe comics coming out were not all that good, if not downright bad. So I'm always very excited at the prospect of them being good, and I really think, at least for a while they are putting great creative teams on the books, these are going to be, I would dare say, the best GI Joe comics we've gotten in decades. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, even though we haven't gotten to read them yet. Um, Last month we got solicit for the first issue of Duke, and here we have the solicit for the first issue of Cobra Commander. And this is a 5-issue miniseries written by Joshua Williamson with art by Andrea Milana and Annalisa Leone. And it tells the origin story of Cobra Commander. So really can't wait for that. And here's some preview images. Looks very good. I'm certainly excited for what's to come. This is an interesting one. Kid Cudi, who is a rapper of some renown, is doing a project with Kyle Higgins, and it's illustrated by Marco Locati. The preview images, which we'll go to now, look pretty good. And the solicit reads pretty intriguing. So it's a sci-fi story about set on the moon, and so we'll see. Sometimes I'm reticent about the celebrity comic thing because they're like vanity projects, and that may be the case here. I to this point didn't know that Kid Cudi wanted to be a comic book writer, but I'm not going to hold that against the book because, like I said, the preview images are solid, and I like the solicit copy, so I'm going to give it a try. Here's an interesting one: Ghost Machine one shot. This is basically like a 0-issue preview of the new connected universe that Geoff Johns is overseeing. Geiger, his book, is in it, as is Redcoat, Rook, the Rockefellers, and others. And this is written by a bunch of people. Written and drawn by Jason Fabok, Gary Frank, Brian Hitch, Geoff Johns, Lamont McGee, Francis Manapul, Brad Meltzer, Peter Tomasi, Mitel Jute, and more. So it's basically a primer of the new universe, and I, I am here for these new collections of universes. Right, we've got the new Rick Remender efforts. We've got this. We've got a Scott Snyder connected universe. We've got a James Tynion connected universe. We've got a Jeff Lemire connected universe. Listen, will they all be great top to bottom? No. Will they all last for years? No. We could probably do an entire episode, or maybe we should do an entire episode on the podcast of connected universes imprints that came and went pretty quickly, and some of these will too. But I love the idea of it. I love more great creators taking the risk of doing their own work and taking the leap. And I don't know that this one shot is like a must have per se, but I love the idea of this connected universe looming large. We've got Spawn 350. Admittedly, that's not something I'm too into, but certainly notable. I apologize for I'm a little congested, as you might hear. Here's a weird one. It's called The Colonized, and it's a one shot. It is written by Chris Ryall, and it's drawn by Drew Moss. Big fan of Drew. We've known him for years and years on the con circuit. You might recognize the name. He's also been recently announced as the artist on Thundercats, written by Declan Shalvey. So this is a one-shot. It's Aliens versus Zombies. It's 96 pages for $10. It's like a little graphic novella. It seems pretty fun. I wish they had put it out for October for like a Halloween vibe, but either way, it looks pretty cool. And I'm definitely going to support this. I love Drew as a person, and it's great to see his talents finally being recognized with a couple big-time projects. Packlist. Now, this is an interesting one. For those of you that are at least aware of my original art collection, I would dare say of all the many hundreds of commissions I have, I think the best commissions that I own, if I were to rank them, which I'm not going to do, but if I were to put like a list of the top 10 to 15 of all of them, I got to tell you, the two that I have from Dustin Weaver would be on there. We haven't seen Dustin do much comic work in recent years, in part because he's been working on this pack list, which is his own idea. I think he's put it out digitally. He's tried to put it out in a lot of different ways. So it looks like he's got to deal with Image now, and he's going to be putting it out starting with this Zero issue. It is, I don't know much about it. I haven't read it, so in any of its other forms, but it says here it's got superhero action, space opera, space comedy, cyberpunk, slice of life, hard-boiled anthropomorphic mice. Much of this material is not likely to be collected later. So yeah, I don't know. I'll definitely give the first issue a try and see what's doing, because Dustin's art is going to be phenomenal. I know that much. I don't know how he is as a storyteller, and we'll find out. This one I know has got my man Dab happy, because it's been a minute since we got Weatherman, but this was a series that we both enjoyed quite a bit. Been a long-time fan of Nathan Fox. He's actually one of the first artists I ever met when we started doing the podcast at the first C2E2. Chris Niesman knew him already, and we met that way. Good dude, incredibly talented, and honestly never thought we'd get a third volume, because it's been years since we've got the second volume, but it's great to see it back. So they're billing it as a conclusion, and it's a 7-issue miniseries. It's basically basically it's the story of a man who is responsible for destroying billions of people in a terrorist attack, and he's got a different identity now. And I'm going to leave it vague, because there's some really cool twists and turns in the book that you should definitely check out the first 2 volumes before you read this, or otherwise it won't make any sense. But for those of you like me and Dap who loved the first 2 volumes back in the day, it's great that we're going to finally get a more fitting conclusion. I own Deadly Class in issues. I own the hardcover collections, so I won't be getting this compendium, but anytime I get a chance to shout out Deadly Class and turn a new reader onto it, I'm going to do so. This is a compendium that collects all the series, issues 1 through 56. So a very inexpensive, readable way to get the series if you haven't gotten it already. Gonna just do a little scrolling here. We've got Fairyland Volume 6 if you haven't been buying the issues. Click Click Boom is a fun miniseries by Doug Wagner with art by Doug Dabbs that actually, I don't know why I didn't buy it when it was solicited, but our good friend Ray turned me on to this, and he was right to have done so. We've got, long awaited for me, the second hardcover volume of Monstrous, the deluxe edition. I read the first hardcover, was the way I read Monstrous, and I've been waiting for this very patiently so I could read the second big chunk of this book. It's a fantastic book. Marjorie Liu and Sonnet Takeda won all the awards, it seems, for it, and I think deservedly so. Normal Man is not a book that I was into when it came out. We've got a 40th anniversary omnibus now. There was some discussion of this on the Slack. I know Dap was a fan of the series back in the day. It's a humor book, written by Jim Valentino, drawn by Jim Valentino. I'm not sure if I'm going to get this or not, but it is certainly something I'm considering. We didn't do a video last month, so I didn't get to tell you how overjoyed I was to see more Adventure Man. Here is Adventure Man Ghostlights #2. It's the latest miniseries by, of course, Matt Fraction and the Dodsons. I haven't read Bloodrick #1, but I think it's getting a lot of good buzz by fans of Sword and Sorcery, including Vince. So I'm going to be checking out 1, and if I like it, I will consider adding 2 and 3 to my pre-orders. We've got the next issue in Bone Orchard Tenement. Recall that as a 10-issue miniseries by Lemire and Sorrentino, so we're getting there. I know many of you are probably waiting for it to be concluded. We're in the middle of Maria Levette's new series, Crave, which I'll check out once it's finished. We've got The Cull, the final issue of the first volume, Kelly Thompson and Mattia Julis. Remember, we had Kelly on the podcast as this was looming, and she talked about the book then. If you listen to this week's podcast, you hear Vince ask why Dap and I aren't reading Dark Ride, and I admonish him and say, in fact, I am reading it, sir. I think I'm up through issue 8, and this is issue 11 solicited. It's a very fun, well-done horror comic. Here we've got the second issue of Duke, which is written by Joshua Williamson. He's a busy man these days, with art by Tom Riley, which you love to see. I had not been reading Enfield Gang Massacre, and then not this week, but last week's podcast, I talked about a number of Western-themed comics that I had read and were so happy to see, because it's a genre that we don't get much of these days, and I love it. Was so impressed with this, having caught up with it, and I can't wait to finish it off now, and this is the 6th and final issue solicited. We've got Lemire's Fish Flies #4 of 7. Of course, you know I'm on board for any Lemire. Here we've got G.I. Joe, Real American Hero 303. Now, remember, the Duke and Cobra Commander books are the new G.I. Joe universe that's basically being launched. It's like a complete restart. This is separate. This is not connected to those, although it is also being put out through Image Skybound. This is the continuation of the OG series that started at Marvel and then went to IDW, that has continuously been written by Larry Hama with art by Chris Moonaghan. Moonaghan is far and away the best artist that's been on this book in decades, and so I love that, and I absolutely can't wait to dive into this. And this is sort of like smack dab nostalgia shot to the heart for me. We've got the final issue of the Hack/Back to School, the Zoe Thorogood book. We discussed the first issue a few weeks back when it came out. Holy Roller is Andy. Speaking of celebrity projects, this is written in part by Andy Samberg with Rick Remender helping out. You always wonder when you see this, right? Like, same thing with the Cuddy book. It's Kyle Higgins and Kid Cudi. This is Andy Samberg and Rick Remender and Joe Throman. Like, how much is this a case of the writers, Higgins and Remender, writing the books with just some ideas from their celebrity counterparts, or are the celebrities really rolling up their sleeves and writing scripts and then just having the comic partners tighten it up and make it suitable for comics. I don't know. Maybe if we have Rick on the show in the next couple months, I will ask him that. We've got the next issue of the final issue rather of Junior Baker, the Righteous Faker. I have the first 2 issues of this. I have not read them yet. I want to wait for all 5 to be done. But given how much I loved Junior Butcher Baker, the Righteous Maker, I can't wait for the sequel here. We've got more Kaya. I have to say, I give Wes credit. This has gone on now for 15 issues. It's kind of crossed the chasm. Generally speaking, if a book isn't selling all that well, you would know by now, and probably would have been wrapped up after an arc or 2. So it means it's found its legs, and that's really exciting because that means that Wes can tell the entire story, right? However long he has planned, he'll probably be able to get it out there by now. Here's something you didn't expect to see. Philadelphia, which is a book I continue to very much love. It's been a little sporadic in its release the last year or 2, but it still continues to be very, very good. It's written by Rodney Barnes with art by Jason Shawn Alexander. But look at this cover. Freaking Savage Dragon is crossing over in this book. I did not expect that. And for those that don't read the book, it's a very, very... It's a vampire, historical, political, kind of like fake universe where the founding fathers are some of the vampire overlords. And it's a pretty crazy book, but it's also very serious, and there's really no humor in it whatsoever. So it'll be interesting to see how Savage Dragon gets worked in, but I'm super excited for it. It's a pretty neat little swerve there. Of course, got our boy Tony's Local Man #9, another book again where you're thrilled to see #9 because certainly wouldn't in today's environment be shocking if a book like this didn't sell well enough to go on beyond the first arc. And if you have listened to Tony on our show, you know that they were hoping to be able to do more, and they're at #9 now. So clearly they have gotten to the point where they feel comfortable putting out the story. Love Everlasting continues to be awesome. It's great to see it back on the solicits. Okay, scrolling here now because I'm not reading these books. Petrolhead #1. Vince just touched on it very briefly this week. He said he enjoyed it. He hadn't I think pre-ordered it, but when he went to the shop, he saw it and bought it. I have the first issue. I have not read it yet as I'm recording this, but it does look fun. It's an all ages future sci-fi robot book. There's no shortage of that kind of thing in comics these days, but based on Vince's initial thoughts on the first issue, I'm here for it. Phantom Road #8, that's another Lemire joint. This one is with Gabriel Hernandez Walta. Of course, The Sacrificers, one of the books I was most excited about this year to hit the stands when I heard that it was coming. This is the 6th issue of Remender and Max Fiumara's fantasy comic. It's great. I'm proud to say I bought art from the 2nd issue and can't wait to continue the journey. You hear my dogs barking? Got your 4th issue of Transformers. Just read the issue #2 and it was blast. DWJ is killing it on the art as you would expect, and I probably don't need to tell you much more about Transformers because you're probably already on board. We've got the 4th and final issue of the Universal Monsters Dracula joint. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. I agree with Vince's take. It's a pretty by-the-numbers look at the Universal Monsters Dracula. But, you know, that being said, I'm a huge vampire fan, so that's enough for me to make the cut. And we've got World Tree #7. I am a little behind on this one. I read the first 3 issues, but I've very much enjoyed what I've read so far, so I don't see myself stopping. So there you have it. That's the Image catalog. Like I said, it seems like I'm buying and enjoying at least 60% of what they're putting out, maybe a little bit more. I think it'll be shocking if they're not my publisher of the year as a result. And I am excited that they're going to continue putting out amazing stuff in January of 2024. So there you have it. I'm going to sign off now and be back with some other comics from some of the other catalogs.